Hello and welcome back to the Gambit Guide. So today we continue with the second part of Krejci Gambit. Quite interesting Gambit line in the Dutch defense after d4, f5 and g2, g4. So in the first part we looked at the main and basic ideas of Krejci Gambit. Quite interesting, and I would say really a dangerous idea for black. But not only on the intermediate and beginner's level we can find the game played with the Krejci Gambit, but even on top level, Grandmaster use this Gambit line in their practicing. I would like just to carry on a few games played by Grandmaster Karen Movsisyan and Henrik Teske, who very successful played this extremely sharp line in the tournaments. So after d4, f5, we are looking right now on the game between Armenian Grandmaster Karen Movsisyan, who currently lives in Spain, and Ferdinand Stoll from Bad Forsberg Open Tournament in 1997. F take g4, and white directly captures the center after e4. d5. So black instantly would like to attack white's center. So definitely now white has no time for e takes d5 because queen takes d5 and black's position is just really good. So rook on h1 is hanging. So it means that white has to play e4, e5, taking more control over the center and prevents the black's knight obtaining the good square on f6. So white is planning after h3 to take the quite serious initiative on the king's side. Bishop f5. So now black is ready to meet h3 by g takes h3, and in case of bishop takes h3, queen d7, black is going very fast to complete development on his queen side after knight c6, and then even go for long castling, so king is just getting out of danger on the king side. So later on, after long castling, black could trade on h3 and then to play e6, knight e7, and black's position is quite safe, so no much problems here. So that's why Karen Movsisyan is just going for more complicated continuation. He played knight e2, intending after knight g3 to attack black's bishop on f5. So he would like to open position on the king side, but later on. So after we complete the development. So now black has no time seriously to play bishop e4, because after rook g1 the pawn on g4 is under attack, and any move like h5, h3 really brings white clear initiative on the king side. Look at that. The g file opened. The bishop on e4 will be attacked very soon, after knight c3. So white has additional unpleasant idea to bring the knight from f4 to e6 or to g6. So it's no question that black's bishop is spending too much time. So of course black cannot move once again same piece in the opening, as we know from our opening principles. So black played queen d7, and after knight g3 it was necessary probably already to play e6, after which white is getting quite serious initiative after classical standard h3 move. Indeed, knight c6 played, and after c3, g6, h3, black is already in serious trouble. So white is intending knight takes f5, White is intending h takes g4. Strong pawn chain in the center, not allowing black easy development of his pieces on the king side. So after g takes h3, here Karen Movsisyan found another strong maneuver. He captured on f5. So black has no time to capture with the pawn, since after queen h5 check, king lost the castling rights. Queen takes f5, and white cannot capture immediately bishop takes h3 because queen e4 check and rook is gone. But knight d2. Bishop h6. So and white answered with quite surprising bishop takes h3, allowing black to capture on d2 with a check. But after king takes d2, white is sacrificing one more pawn for strong initiative. After king d3, it is quite difficult for black to solve all his problem. So white is intending to play bishop e3 later on, and to bring the other rook on the king side. So black just cannot complete his development. The knight cannot go to h6. King cannot castle. Check on g3, bishop e3. It was necessary here for black to play knight h6. However, after queen e2, with the threat rook d2, g1, black's position is very, very difficult, very dangerous. For instance, short castling. Check on e6, so white is having strong bishops. Knight comes to f7, and rook a to g1. Black's queen is trapped on the king side. After knight takes e5, d takes e5, and queen takes e5, white could win by different ways, but the nice one is that one. Rook takes g6, a takes g6, bishop d4, and there is no way to stop rook h8 check later on. Black's position is totally done. So in the game, black immediately sacrificed the knight. Knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes e5. But of course, in that case, bishop takes h6. So, knight takes, queen a4 check, king f7, rook a to f1 check, knight f6, and final combination, rook takes f6. Now in case of e takes, queen d7, queen e7, white wins by bishop e6, king f8, and bishop h6, and the checkmate. In the game, after queen takes f6 and rook f1, black just immediately resigned. He's going to lose his strongest piece for no compensation. So less than 20 moves and Karen Movsisyan just destroyed the position of Ferdinand Stoll in Bad Wurzhofen Open Tournament in 1997 with a very sharp Krejci gambit. The other game I would like to show you, played in Voronezh Open Tournament in 1987 between German Grandmaster Henrik Teske and Jens Christensen. After d4 f5, Teske chose his favorite Krejci gambit after g4. f takes g4. And here, instead of playing e4, Teske immediately played h3. So I would like to tell you that Jens Christiansen is quite strong player. He's international master. He was rated 24-45 already in that time, in 1987. And he chose just to avoid any complications, play just simply g3. This is one of the opportunities for black to play anti-gambit, just not to allow white to open files on the king side. Indeed, after g3, take on g3, knight f6. Knight c3, white got slightly better prospects because more control in the center, and black is not having any more pawn on f5, which help him control the e4 square. Bishop g2. And here we have two opportunities. Let's say Vladimir Molonyuk, one of the strongest Ukrainian grandmaster, against Pavel Trigubov, former European champion in Linares 1996, played in this position e6. Indeed, after knight f3, bishop d6 and knight e5, c5, bishop f4, reach quite complicated position. So white is intending after short castling and e3 maybe to start the attack on the king side after g4 and g5, sends to the strong outpost for the knight on e5. So Jan Christiansen immediately played in this position after bishop g2, c5, trying to counterattack the center. Knight f3, knight c6, and Hendrik Teske continued in gambit style, bishop g5, so playing for fast, rapid development of all the pieces. C takes d4, knight takes d4. e5. So black is getting the center control, but his king in very, very dangerous situation. Now, bishop takes f6, necessary to weaken black pawn structure. So now black has no time for capturing on f6 with the queen, because knight takes d5 wins immediately. Black's only answer is g takes f6. Knight takes c6, b takes c6, and very interesting position occurred, because despite the fact black has very strong center, white has better development. And after e3, white is intending to bring the queen to h5 with a check. Black started his counterplay. Black believes that a strong position of the center and two bishops in open situation would bring black the advantage. So who is right? White has to play extremely active, extremely aggressive. Queen h5 check, king e7, and white is ready now to sacrifice the pawn on e3. So we play in easy gambit style for better development, short, long castling. So now, in case of queen takes e3 and king b1, white is having a lot of press over the black center. So we are intending bishop takes d5. We are intending maybe at some point knight takes d5 or even rook takes d5. Since black cannot accept the sacrifice, knight takes d5 would be decisive knight's fork. A move like d4 also will be met by rook h to e1 with extremely strong initiative for white. So instead of capturing on e3, black is trying to continue to develop his pieces. Bishop e6. Rook d3, covering the e3 pawn. and after rook b8 and b3, so white has to stop queen takes b2 idea, and queen a5, one more piece finally come into the fight, rook h to d1. White is concentrated all his forces for d5 pawn, so d5 pawn is target for our attack. Bishop g7, and here Teske came with sacrifice. Finally, knight takes d5, c takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, and rook takes d5. It's hard to say what underestimate here the Jens Christensen, but after queen a3 check and king b1, white is having that threat. Rook comes to d7 and queen f7 with a checkmate. I believe that black considers that after rook to d8 it's quite easy to stop white's attack. Indeed, something is missed here. White just made a move and black resigned immediately. Of course, white is not going to trade on d8 instantly, but queen g4. This is a double attack. So white is intending also queen take g7, also rook d5 to d7 check. There is no solution for black. After rook takes d5 and rook takes d5, there is no way to stop the checkmate. For instance, after bishop h6, rook d7 check. And nothing could stop queen f7 check, and this is a mate already. So extremely sharp play in the Krejci Gambit leads to the very complicated and very unbalanced situations. I would like to show you one more game played by Alexei Kireev against Yuri Steilik from Pardubice Open 2004, which also started with a Dutch defense after d4, f5 and g4. So in this game we could see that black face the problems even when they are avoiding the main variation of the Krejci Gambit and plays d6, trying not to accept the sacrifice. G takes f5, bishop takes f5. So what's the problem now for black? Because white trade his side pawn for one of the center pawns, and f pawn is really important a support for black's attack against the white's e4 pawn. So after bishop g2, white gets additional opportunity to play e4 and captures the center. After bishop g6 and knight h3, sends to the better situation in control over the center squares. White's chances are clearly better. So black's pieces are stuck on the back rank. It's difficult to play d5. e5 only weakens black's position in the center. So white is intending knight f4. White is intending knight g5 to use the weak square on e6. After queen c7 and knight g5, it's already extremely difficult position for black occurred. e5, so as I said before, d4, d5. White's knight is coming to e6. Knight f6. Knight c3, of course we are not forgetting about continue developing our pieces. Knight a6, bishop e3, so still black cannot castle. Let's after castling knight e6, we are losing exchange immediately. So, but how to fight against this nasty knight on g5, which is intending to come to e6 any moment. So black played queen e7, queen e2 and knight c7. So covering the e6 square finally. However, black lost just a lot of tempi, and definitely white's advantage becomes almost decisive after d takes c6, b takes c6, and queen c4. How to protect c6 pawn? c5. So first of all, we would like to prevent black king from castling longside. Bishop h3. At the same time, we are aiming to check queen a4. So bishop h3 also prevents black from queen d7 defense. Bishop f7. Queen a4 check. King d8, and don't forget about the development. Long castling not only takes the king to the safe place on c1, but also brings more fight against black's king. So rook in the game now. Bishop e8. Queen a5. White attacks continue easily when black hardly could do anything. Bishop d7, and finally tactics involved. Rook takes d6. So suddenly the rook cannot be taken, because after queen takes and knight f7 the queen is gone. So in that in that case, rook takes d6 is a decisive move already. King c8. Now white is using classical idea of pin. Rook takes d7, knight takes d7, and finally one more rook came to d1, h6, rook takes d7, queen takes d7, bishop takes d7, king takes d7. Despite the fact black is two rooks for queen and knight, definitely black's position is totally lost, because all the pawns just now are going like fresh apples. Knight f7, and black resigns, since after rook g8 and knight takes e5, white is just getting decisive material advantage. So one more game when on quite serious level already. So white used main ideas of Krejcik Gambit in the game between Alexei Kireev and Yuri Shtelik from Pardubice Open tournament. And finally, I would like just to carry on one more game between Kyle Mireni and Reinhold Rieberger from St. Inberg Open Tournament 1998. Which started after d4, f5, g4, f takes g4, h3, d5, queen d3. So this idea already we studied. So white is also preventing black's bishop from obtaining f5 square, also intending h take g, and then queen bishop comes to h3. Knight f6, h take g4, bishop take g4, f3. So white, one of the white's main ideas is to build a strong center after e4. Bishop d7, e4, take on e4. So now how to stop e4, e5? Black decided to play queen c8, having in mind after e5 to play bishop f5. Unfortunately for black, after bishop h3, his position is already quite difficult. Bishop takes d3 will be met by bishop takes c8, bishop e4, and rook h4, and black is losing material. Or knight or bishop. So after bishop h3, black choose knight e4. Indeed, after knight bd2, bishop takes h3, knight h3, knight takes d2, bishop d2, knight c6, and long castle. We are seeing here the typical situation is a Krejci gambit. White is having better development, open files on the king side, and black is going to suffer from white's next threat, knight g5 or knight f4, intending black's pawns on the king side. So almost impossible to protect this position. Queen d7, bishop c3, intending d4, d5, e6, knight f4, threatening the pawn on h7, queen f7, h6, check on g6, and now e6 pawn is gone. White is still continuing his plan with d4, d5, breaking completely black's position. Bishop e7, queen takes, king takes, d5. So in this example, we easily could understand that white's center pawn much more active than black's connected pawns on the king side. Bishop g5, rook to f1, knight e7, king b1. So since white is intending e6 check and knight h5, black has to trade his bishop for knight. So now also rook d1 was quite good option, of course, for white, but he chose to play g6, and still knight e5 kept some chances for black, but black wrongly captured and played knight c6, completely overlooked that white has made in sacrifice. Bishop takes g7. Once again showing that white is having development advantage. So black rook on h18 stuck. Black cannot accept the sacrifice after rook g1 check and rook f7. This is a checkmate against black's king. But of course, rook h7 in this position also cannot solve black problems after bishop c3. Rook d7, check. Rook f6, threatening bishop d2, and threatening rook h1. Black's position is lost, but knight d8 finished the game immediately after rook f8. No way to stop rook h8, and this is already checkmate. So this is just one more example showed typical plans for white in the Krejci gambit. So when we have the initiative in the center and on the king side, it's very important, very fast to complete our development, to bring our king to the queen side and combine threats, knight g5, knight f4, against black's pawns on the king side, and at the same time support the center after e4, e5, d4, d5, just to destroy black's defense. So from today's lesson, you can realize that Krejci Gambit is quite dangerous weapon against Dutch defense, and it's not so easy for black to contradict white's plan. I would be happy if you could test and try to use the Krejci Gambit in your practice as well. If you have any questions, you can contact me on www.chesslessons.wordpress.com and to leave me a message or new requests for covering the lines, gambit lines in different openings. And of course, I will be happy to answer your questions. And for today, thanks to everybody, and hope you enjoyed the Krejci Gambit line. See you next time. Bye.